there and welcome back to Cyboss TV. I'm Daisy McAndrew, very excited to be introducing my next special guest, my last special guest of the day, day 3 of this Cyboss 2014. Now, if you want to know how to improve or boost your productivity, I have just the man to tell you how to do it. Robert Pozen is with me. He's visiting senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management, also senior lecturer at Harvard, I think, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. But for our chat, for the subject in question, you've written one of your many books, Extreme Productivity, Boost Your Results, Reduce Your Hours. Okay, tell me, how can I boost my results and reduce my hours? That sounds very tempting.
Well, I have 3 main ideas in my book. The first is to set your priorities and write them down and try to allocate your time relative to your priorities. Most people spend less than half their time on what they say are their top 3 priorities. And you need to be able to integrate those priorities into your daily schedule, and I show you how to do that. The second is try to get through all the small stuff as soon as possible. Things like emails, meetings, they take up a huge amount of time and get you nowhere.
I can make them last a whole day if I'm trying to put off something.
Well, that's one of the other things I discussed is procrastination. How do you overcome procrastination? And I have a concept called Ohio. Only handle it once, as a way to how you deal with important stuff. Don't forget it, deal with it right away. And lots of other emails, I say, just throw it away. But the ones that are important, deal with it right away, only handle it once.
So don't open that email, say that's really important, I'll come back to that later, and
Correct.
Go and get on with the easy stuff.
Correct, because before that, you know it, you'll have 200 messages really important in your holding pattern. And the third idea I have, which is in many ways the most radical, is I call it start at the end. That's for your high priority big projects. So if somebody asked you, let's open a new branch for your firm somewhere in Europe, here's 3 months to work on it. Most people would take 10, 12 weeks and at doing research, and at the very end, they would try to synthesize it. My view is that that's very inefficient. After the first 2 days of research, you got to sit down and write your tentative hypothesis, your tentative conclusions. Those will provide a way for you to guide the rest of your research, and they'll force you to come to grips with the critical issues. And then you have a mid-flight review about halfway through, and so by the time you get to that last week, you've already twice gone through the analytic exercise of trying to figure out what are the key factors, what are the range of cities, and you'll have a much more efficient and much more effective big project.
And I'm guessing if the boss moves the goalpost and says, actually, Posen, I want it a week early, you're not left with a massive essay crisis, as we call it, up or
Yeah,
down,
that's absolutely correct.
You're nearly there.
You've made a lot of progress, and you just deliver it before time.
And how do you go about researching the best ways to be productive? Do you observe people? Do you have different people doing different things? What's the process?
Well, it's a number of things. One is I derive some of it from my own experience. The way I came to write this book is I was running MFS. I was chairman of MFS, which was at that time about $300 billion, and teaching a full load at Harvard Business School and on a few boards. So one thing I've done is just try to distill my own lessons.
But aren't we all different personality
Absolutely.
types?
And the second is I do a lot of surveys, and the third is there's a lot of research on this. So you can look at research. For instance, one thing some people believe is a way to become more productive is to sleep fewer hours, only to sleep 5 hours a night. Well, there's actually a lot of research shows that that's a really bad idea, because when you only sleep 5 hours, your performance on complex tasks goes down, and scarily, you don't realize it. So that's something. And there's other research, for instance, on how do you become an effective speed writer. Most people think of writing as one process, but if you look at the brain research, you can see that it's really 2 separate processes. One is thinking of the line of argument, and second is a translation issue, how you take that line of argument and turn it into words. So it turns out that if you want to write well, you have to write outlines in advance. The outline is a way in which essentially you figure out what your line of argument is. Once you do that, you can tackle the second task, which is the translation process, which is pretty hard in itself. But at least if you got the first step done, you got a shot at the second.
And I guess some of us, when we're thinking, particularly with journalistic background or anybody that does a lot of writing like yourself, some days you just feel that your brain isn't working that well, that it's all a bit confusing. And I guess if you have that blueprint in front of you of knowing where you want to end up, rather than just any old rubbish coming out of your head, that would simplify the whole, make you much more productive.
Yeah, I also, in the book, delineate a process of how you start by brainstorming ideas and sort of putting everything down. Don't be afraid to put everything down. Then second of all, group them into categories. And then third of all, try to put them in a logical order. I've published over 10 articles this year, so I consider myself a speed writer, some in the FT, some in the Wall Street Journal. So I think the process really works.
And we're talking about personal productivity here, but are there management techniques that, I mean, can you instill or insist on these techniques in your employees?
Well, the book doesn't try to address all organizational issues, but it deals with how you as the boss or the manager delegate things to your team, because delegation is a key method of increasing your productivity. And I talk about how it is that you need to spend time up front with your team to agree on priorities, and then most importantly, agree on metrics. So if I said to you, we're going to improve customer service, everybody says yes, but what do they mean? So if I and my team agree that a month from now, these are the metrics we're going to look at, then it allows my team to what I call own their own space, have a degree of autonomy, but it still allows me as the boss to have a high degree of accountability. So that's management of your team is a very important aspect of productivity.
And I'm guessing leading by example, not sending your team emails in the middle of the night to show how macho you are that you're still working, or sending them at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, probably the main message of the book is it doesn't matter how many hours you work. It matters what you get accomplished. You know, as a journalist, you could sit there for hours and not write an article or write a bad article, or you could all of a sudden sit down for 2 hours and write a publishable article. So showing that you're working late at night is really ridiculous. I believe that what you got to do is show results. And if you take a culture and you imbibe in that, you input into that culture, the notion is don't try to stay to the office as late as possible. Try to get the most done. What were you doing the whole day that you had to stay at the office late? Were you playing video games or were you just procrastinating? Yeah. I've had a lot of people tell me they're afraid to leave the office at 6 p.m. because everybody's there, but they've actually finished their work. So you've got to have a different culture, the culture of let's get results rather than let's see how many hours we can put in the office.
Fantastic tips there from Robert Pozen. Robert, your book is Extreme Productivity, Boost Your Results, Reduce Your Hours. And that was number 3 on Fast Company's list of best business books, I think.
Yes, it was, and it's an easy read. It's got summaries at the end of each chapter, so you can read it efficiently and productively.
And be highly productive. Well, I'm going to rush out and buy it. Bob Pozen, thank you so much for joining us here on Sibos TV. That's all from me today. Daisy McAndrew, I'll be joining you again tomorrow morning. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.